Joining us now to break down this issue more in depth is Janae Stracke, the grassroots director of Heritage Action for America, a conservative policy advocacy organization. So, Janae, when we look at Judge Amy Coney Barrett, I mean, she's been someone that in conservative circles, she's been very hyped up for not just the past couple of weeks, for example, leading up to this nomination, but rather years, dating back even before the confirmation of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. So when we look at Judge Amy Coney Barrett now, do you think that she's the right person for the right time, both judicially and politically?
Absolutely. I think President Trump made the perfect pick with Amy Coney Barrett. As you said, she's well known by many people. Grassroots across the country know her name and are familiar with her work. She has an impressive legal career. She's more than qualified for this position. She graduated top of her class with honors, was loved and is loved by classmates and professors. She served as a law professor herself. She clerked for the late Justice Antonin Scalia and is currently sitting as a federal judge on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, which to do so, she had to go through a Senate confirmation hearing just 3 years ago, in which she was confirmed by a bipartisan vote, bipartisan support. So her work has been thoroughly vetted by the Senate and largely by the American people. We know who she is, and she has proven herself to be a true originalist who firmly believes and respects the Constitution and believes in interpreting laws as they are written rather than imposing any kind of personal policy preference or being a judicial activist. So I think she's an excellent pick. And aside from her excellent qualifications, she's also an incredible role model as a mother of 7 and all that she's accomplished in her career and having a family. I think there are a lot of things for people to look up to.
No, there's no question. And I'm glad you brought up the family aspect, too, because I've seen that being used against her by many critics on the left. And I think it's very hypocritical because I looked back and saw when Antonin Scalia, for example, went through his confirmation process, a father of 9 at the time, it was something that was celebrated. And now I look at a lot of those on the left saying, well, could she do her responsibilities as a mother of 7 with all that going on? And you don't ask that of a male. I think it's a little bit of a hypocritical, if not misogynistic attack being levied against her, but it's just one of several. And one of the big ones right now by many of her critics is that she might overturn Roe v. Wade. That's what a lot of people say, citing her Catholic beliefs. So I want to ask you, do you think that Roe v. Wade, with Judge Amy Coney Barrett on the bench, presumably with Brett Kavanaugh as the swing vote then, is in jeopardy of being maybe overruled or at least just very much so fundamentally changed?
Well, I don't think the question is whether Roe v. Wade is in jeopardy based on her nomination. I think the question is whether Roe v. Wade is in jeopardy based on the Constitution. Judge Barrett has made it very clear where she stands in the Constitution and her job and role as a judge and how she would be as a justice on the Supreme Court. And she believes in interpreting the law as it was written. So I don't think it's a question of her views. She's made it very clear that she's not going to impose personal preferences. I think her focus will be protecting all rights for all Americans. So it really will come down to what the Constitution says and whether Roe v. Wade should stand based on that. And let's remember that if Roe v. Wade is overturned, it does not make abortion illegal. It simply turns it back to the states where it would be decided there as it should have been from the beginning.
And when we talk to a lot of conservatives, too, oftentimes they feel like their activism is overlooked to some degree, whereas the activism on the other side gets all the news coverage. I mean, we've done this before where we compare the March for Life to the Women's March and other conservative groups and their type of events as compared to ones that are advocacy for the left, and they don't get the same attention. So when it comes to the culture war, if you will, between conservatives and progressives, does that really start at the court, something that fundamentally changes people's lives?
Well, the front line of the culture war is culture. So certainly the courts are very important to conservatives because all that we've worked for decades can be overturned by liberal judicial activists. So if the court was full of people just imposing their personal beliefs, then, certainly everything we work for would be in vain. So the courts are important, and people are activated by that, but they are not the end all be all. That is not the end goal. It is important for us to continue growing our grassroots and pushing back on the leftist push on our culture. Heritage Action did a ton of polling this last year in 2019, and we've found that many independent voters lean conservative, and in our polling, 57% of voters believe that Democrats are becoming increasingly extremist. So the polling shows that the majority of Americans do not align with where the Democrat Party is going, and the push that you see from the left online, it's the narrative that most media outlets are pushing, but we have to push back against that. So if you're watching and you feel alone in your beliefs, don't, because you're not.
And I think that comes as a lot of good news for a lot of people, because I know that we've talked to people on this program before, and people that aren't on camera that say the very same thing, that they don't always feel like they have a home necessarily. But when they do find people who have a common cause, for example, someone who's fighting with them, I think it comes as a lot of comfort for them as well. But Janae Stracke, it's a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight and breaking down what should come next in the Supreme Court showdown. Thank you.